Here is a fact that breaks your sense of time. When Cleopatra was born, the Great Pyramid of Giza was already 2,500 years old. Ancient. A ruin from a forgotten age. In fact, Cleopatra lived closer in time to the first moon landing than to the building of that pyramid. This is ancient Egypt. Not a kingdom, but a civilization that lasted 3,000 years, longer than the time between us and Julius Caesar, twice over. And it grew, of all places, in a lifeless desert, kept alive by a single, miraculous river. So how did they turn sand into an empire that lasted millennia? How did they raise a mountain of stone with no machines? Why did an entire people spend their lives preparing to die? And why, unlike the lost cities of the Indus, can we still read every word they left behind? To understand Egypt, you have to understand the river. Every summer, like clockwork, the Nile flooded. And when the waters pulled back, they left behind a gift, a strip of thick, black, fertile mud in the middle of the desert. The Egyptians called their land Kemet, the Black Land, after that life-giving soil. And because the flood came reliably, year after year, they could grow more food than they could eat. That surplus is the seed of everything. Cities, priests, kings, pyramids. Around 3,100 years before Christ, a ruler we remember as Numa united the two lands of Egypt, the valley in the south and the delta in the north, into one kingdom. And so began a line of god-kings that would rule, in one form or another, for 3,000 years. Because to the Egyptians, the pharaoh was not just a ruler. He was a living god. The bridge between the people and the heavens. His single most important job was to hold back chaos and keep the universe in balance, a sacred order they called Ma'at. Now hold that idea, a god-king, ruling a river kingdom in the desert. Because these people were about to do something with stone that 4,000 years later, we still can't fully explain. Quick pit stop. If your brain just went to wait, what? That's the subscribe button calling, tap it, drop a like, and you genuinely help this little channel take on the algorithm. Got a theory or a favorite fact? The comments are right there, and I read every single one. Right, back into the rabbit hole. It began with a man named Imhotep. Around 2600 BCE, he stacked stone into a series of giant steps for his king, Dosa. The Step Pyramid. The first colossal building made of cut stone anywhere on Earth. But it was only the beginning. A few generations later, a pharaoh named Khufu decided to build something that had never been attempted. Not steps. A true, smooth-sided mountain, reaching for the sun. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The numbers still sound impossible. Over 2 million blocks of stone, some weighing more than a car. Stacked nearly 150 meters high. And it was built without a single wheel for transport, without iron tools, without pulleys. When it was finished, it stood as the tallest structure built by human hands for nearly 4,000 years. Nothing on Earth would be taller until a cathedral spire in medieval Europe. Let that sink in. One building held that record for longer than most civilizations have existed. And its base is level to within a couple of centimeters, aligned almost perfectly to true north. 4,500 years ago, with the tools of the Bronze Age, they achieved a precision that would challenge engineers today. So who built it? For centuries, people imagined vast armies of whipped slaves. But the evidence tells a different story. Archaeologists found the workers' own town beside the pyramids. Bakeries, breweries, doctors, graves dug with honor. These were not slaves. They were skilled, organized, well-fed crews, paid in bread and beer, who took pride in the work. Some even scrawled their team names on the stones. The friends of Khufu. The drunkards of Menkaure. Real people, with a sense of humor, building for eternity. And guarding it all, they carved a creature from a single ridge of limestone. The body of a lion, the face of a king. The Great Sphinx. It has watched the sun rise over these tombs for 4,500 years. But here is the question that really matters. Why? Why pour the wealth of an entire kingdom into a giant tomb of solid stone? The answer is the strangest and most powerful idea in all of Egypt. They were not afraid of death. They were preparing for it. Because the pyramid was a machine. A machine designed to launch a dead king's soul into the sky, to live forever among the gods and the stars. To the Egyptians, this life was just the beginning. The real life came after. And if you wanted to live forever, you had a problem. Your soul needed a home to return to. Your body. So the Egyptians became masters of the one craft that could defeat decay itself. Mummification. The process took 70 days, and it was not for the squeamish. First, the internal organs were removed and sealed in sacred jars. The stomach, the lungs, the liver, each protected by a god. The brain, though? They didn't think it mattered at all. So they pulled it out through the nose and threw it away. Because to the Egyptians, the seat of the soul, of thought, of feeling, wasn't the brain. It was the heart. And the heart they left inside. Then the body was buried in natron salt for 40 days, drying it completely, until nothing was left for rot to feed on. Finally, it was wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen, with protective charms tucked between the layers, and sealed in a coffin shaped like a person. But surviving the tomb was only half the journey. Next, the soul had to pass a test. And it was the most important exam anyone would ever take. In the Great Hall of Judgment, the gods placed the dead person's heart on a scale. And on the other side, a single feather. The feather of Ma'at. Truth itself. If your heart was light, if you had lived a good and honest life, it balanced the feather, and you passed into paradise. But if your heart was heavy with sin, it tipped the scale. An awaiting monster, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo, devoured it whole. That was the true death the Egyptians feared. Not the end of the body, but the end of the soul. To be devoured, and simply erased. To never be remembered. And so they filled their tombs with everything they'd need to live forever. We know this because of one incredible discovery. In 1922, the very same year archaeologists half a world away were unearthing the lost cities of the Indus, a man named Howard Carter found a tomb that robbers had missed. The tomb of a boy king. Tutankhamun. Inside was a breathtaking hoard of gold, and a mask so perfect it would become the face of ancient Egypt itself. And if a minor, half-forgotten king was buried with that much splendor, imagine what was lost from the tombs of the great ones. And here is where Egypt's story turns from every other lost world. Because they were writers. They covered their walls, their tombs, their monuments, in beautiful picture writing. Hieroglyphs. The words of the gods. But over the centuries, as the old religion died, the knowledge of how to read them died with it. For nearly 1,400 years, the voice of Egypt fell completely silent. Its walls were covered in a story no living person could understand. Until a single broken slab of stone changed everything. The Rosetta Stone. Carved with the very same message 3 times. Once in hieroglyphs. Once in everyday Egyptian. And once in Greek, a language scholars could still read. It was the key. Working from the Greek, a brilliant Frenchman named Champollion cracked the code in 1822. And suddenly, a dead civilization began to speak again. We could read their names, their prayers, their laws, their love poems. Think of the contrast. The Indus people left us cities we can walk through but a script we cannot read, they are forever silent. The Egyptians left us their whole minds, written on stone. For 1,000 years later we know exactly who they were. And that is a kind of immortality. But even gods grow old. After thousands of years, the kingdom that had outlasted everything began, at last, to fade. Wave after wave of outsiders came for the riches of the Nile. Assyrians, Persians, and then, a young conqueror from the north. Alexander the Great took Egypt without a fight, and after him, his Greek generals ruled from a dazzling new city called Alexandria. The pharaohs were now foreigners. And the last of that line would become the most famous Egyptian who ever lived. Cleopatra. Brilliant, ruthless, and fighting to keep her ancient kingdom free as a new superpower rose in the West. Rome. She gambled everything on it. And she lost. In 30 BCE, with Cleopatra dead, Rome swallowed Egypt whole. After 3,000 years, the age of the pharaohs was over. The temples fell silent, the old gods were abandoned, and the meaning of the hieroglyphs slipped into the sand, waiting to be found again. And yet, stand at Giza today, and the pyramids are still there. The only wonder of the ancient world still standing. So old that they were already ancient history to the Romans, who were already ancient history to us. The Egyptians wanted one thing above all else: to defeat death, to never be forgotten. And here we are, 4,000 years later, still speaking their names: Khufu, Tutankhamun, Cleopatra, still staring up at what they built. They asked to be remembered forever. And somehow, they won. Along the great rivers of the West, the first civilizations rose and fell, and left us their tombs and their words. But far to the east, a different story was unfolding, older, stranger, and closer to home. The story of how the very first humans walked into India is next.